All right. Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of Daybreak Live. My name's Krissi. I'm with Positively Osceola, and Positively Osceola just wants to bring you news that informs, impacts, and inspires. Today's episode of Daybreak Live, I'm actually hosting a special guest, Michelle Incandela of Draper Law Office. We're going to be talking about school safety. She'll give us amazing legal advice and just information in general that's always helpful and things that we don't always think about. I mean, we're not attorneys, and they've been doing this since the 1980s. So this is definitely something that is relevant, especially with the new school year already starting. So let's jump right into it, and then I'll introduce you to Michelle. Here we go. All right, once again, welcome back to another episode of Daybreak Live. Again, I'm Krissi with Positively Osceola, and today I get to host special guest Michelle Incandela from Draper Law Office, and she's actually going to be talking about school safety, bus safety, and just legal advice in general that's going to be helpful for us as we have lots of kids walking, school buses around, and stuff that's relevant to our families in our community. So stick around. We are going to introduce you to her now. So let's bring her on. Hey, Michelle, how are you?
Good morning. Hi, Krissi. Good morning, Osceola. I'm doing great. How are you this morning?
I'm great. I'm so excited to chat with you again. It's always a great time, and you always give us very helpful information that we most likely don't think about, and I love it. So thank you for bringing value to my life, in general.
Absolutely. Love being here. Yeah. So, since the last time we spoke, the kids are back to school.
Yep.
Yeah. So that it always brings to mind, and for us, from our perspective, we always see kind of a change in our business. Because as you know, when the kids go back to school, the buses are back on the roads and the bus stops are out there. And it's a really good time, we thought, to kind of just give a little refresher on reminding everyone, if you're a parent, you're very focused on, the bus stop and the kids. But understand there's a lot of people on the roads who aren't. And there's some people that just are totally clueless because they don't have kids as to when school starts back up again.
Yes.
And they're not expecting that, that traffic pattern change and the bus stops to be there. And so unfortunately, we see an increase in accidents around this time of the year. And so first heads up is just to give everybody, that warning that you need to be a little bit extra cautious, be a little bit more mindful of the traffic patterns changing, and definitely watch out for those that are out there that aren't clued in and aren't paying attention to those changes. So when you're dropping your child off, obviously extra caution, and really talk to the kids. I know a lot of parents were so focused on getting them on the bus, getting them off the bus, and just the sort of general chaos that goes with that process.
Yeah.
But a lot of parents forget you really need to talk to the kids about the watching out for those vehicles, because sometimes I myself watch kids going to and from the buses and they're just in a complete zone pattern and not paying any attention at all to their surroundings. So definitely want to have that talk with the kids to let them know that it's as hard as it is to be awake in the mornings. It's a really important time to pay attention to what's going on around you. Watch out for those cars, go over those crossing tips, anything that you can do to bring to your child's attention the fact that it can be a dangerous situation. You're not scaring them, but certainly want to make them aware of it.
Yeah, I feel like as someone who doesn't have children and who doesn't really think about the changes in the time and the school zones, I mean, I'm definitely guilty of that. I'm not even thinking about it, but knowing that that's a part of the community is first, right? Be educated, be aware. And then also, I think people are so rushed all the time, and they're leaving late for work, and then they're on their way to school or work. And It's just everyone's always in a hurry, and they're not thinking, and they're not paying attention. And I think that that's a huge issue too.
You got it. Driver inattentiveness, people, just trying to get to where they're going without realizing that they're going to be delayed just adds to the problem. You're absolutely right. Some of what we see also is a little bit of confusion. There's a lot of people that are still not sure of when they need to stop for buses. So we see a lot of issues when a bus stops on the opposite side of the roadway, and the people that are in the other direction of traffic get confused. They don't know whether or not they need to stop. And then the people that do stop usually are correct. If there is a divided highway and there's a possibility for them to cross, you do need to stop, even if you're in the opposite direction of that bus. The person behind you might not realize that. So again, be aware of those patterns, be aware exactly, there you go, there's your graphic. So be aware of those patterns and understand that when you need to stop, hopefully the people behind you realize that also. That's also a problem. So we do want drivers to be aware of those rules and understand that just because the bus is on the opposite side of the road does not necessarily mean that you are not also going to have to stop, even though it's in the other direction.
Oh my gosh, I don't think I knew that.
Yeah.
So even if it's divided, you still have to stop on both sides because those kids could be crossing the street, right?
If it's divided, you don't. It's when it's open where the kids have the possibility of crossing that you would need to stop. So just be careful of that. And the problem also is that because people are confused about it, there could be a divided highway when you don't necessarily lawfully need to stop, but the person doesn't realize that. Again, there's that confusion. They might stop even though they don't have to. If it's completely divided and there's no crossing, you wouldn't normally need to stop, right? But sometimes people get confused. They just see the bus and they automatically go into safety mode, so they stop. Well, the people behind them are not expecting them to stop. So just be aware, anytime there's a bus in the area, just be extra aware of the fact that you might have to stop and somebody might stop unnecessarily. So just be extra prepared.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I guess the main thing that you can do is just always be extra cautious or just stop to make sure, right? There's no harm in that.
Always be extra cautious. Always have those extra senses going. Anytime there's those buses on the road, you just want to really be very tuned in to what's going on around you. Watch for those kids who are running across when they shouldn't run across, and kids get excited or they're running late or they're not paying attention. Watch for the drivers that are stopping when they maybe shouldn't necessarily be stopping. Just extra caution all around. We'll get through this.
I know.
Safely.
And something else that I notice is like when kids get off the bus, they're like this.
Yeah.
Right. They're on their phones and they're crossing or they're walking across the street and they're like this. They're not even paying attention. And so as a parent, what can we tell kids to keep them safe?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, again, especially, our teens, the little ones are generally so excited. They just, as soon as you let them go, they just run. But the older ones are in that zone. They're looking at their phones, they're talking to their friends, and they tend to be completely unaware of what's around them. As the mother of two teenage girls, I can tell you both of them went through a phase where I used to say they were in their own little bubble. And that's when talking to the kids becomes important. Put the phone down when you're walking to and from the bus. Pay attention to the drivers, pay attention to, the traffic pattern. Just be aware and try to not get into that zone where you're just a zombie. It's hard. It's hard with teenagers. They don't tend to wake up well and they're not very sparky in the morning. So it is a challenge, but, talk to them parents and do what you can to try to get them to just be more aware of what's going on.
Absolutely. And this graphic actually brings up a good point too. It's talking about crossing guards. We're lucky in Osceola County, like there are a lot of crossing guards and there are a lot of people that are volunteering their time to help keep kids safe, parents walking their kids. But if there isn't, I mean, that's something that you have to be aware of, right? And then if there are, we have to follow what they're saying. This is their job. This is what they're doing to keep our kids safe, right?
Right. I've seen more than one crossing guard actually stop and yell at drivers on more than one occasion, which is pretty sad. I don't remember that happening when I was growing up, but things have definitely changed over the years. And I've seen crossing guards actually stop and yell at vehicles because, unfortunately, like you said, Krissi, everybody's in a rush, and some people are just not paying attention. That even if you don't see a child or necessarily see why, if that crossing guard is telling you to stop, then you pay attention and you stop your car.
Right.
So yeah, exactly.
And like, oh, my Alexa's gonna go crazy. Pause. All right, relax. So something else that I think is important to note is that kids need to have certain rules as far as bus safety goes. And I think that kids who are going through the bus system again, maybe for a second time or a third time, they still have things that they need to know and be updated on, because kids are always changing, right? Their brains aren't always thinking about what's going on. So there are things that they can do also while they're waiting at a bus stop, and other things to avoid distractions also. So I think this graphic brings appropriate points as well, like dress appropriately, wear light, bright, reflective clothing, and do not wear a hood so you can be seen in traffic. Also important. I think that's awesome. Especially as it gets darker when the fall is here and things are changing. So, I mean, that's also important, right?
It's absolutely important. There's a lot of kids, and I'm not familiar with the current school schedules because they've changed, and I no longer have kids in the public school system, but I know that a lot of them are getting on those buses when it is very dark. I think that's the older group, the high school group. And again, absolutely, because the stops can be inside a development that's not well lit. They're not all necessarily on major roadways where there's good lighting. Definitely something else to talk to the kids about. Just anything that you can do to talk to them to make them, like I said, more aware of their surroundings and more aware of being as safe as possible. The big issue that I see repeatedly year after year, constantly causing problems for kids, is when they're late. They're late and they're trying to catch the bus and they don't realize it's dark. The drivers can't see you and they just dart out. As teenagers are fast, when they want to be, they're fast, right? So they just, unfortunately, we've had a couple that have darted out in front of vehicles, and the vehicles are just, again, you have drivers that are still sleepy and not paying attention. It's still dark out, and you have kids who are in their own world just trying to get on that bus, and it's a bad combination. So again, you want those kids to be as aware as possible, and drivers pay attention and remember they're impulsive sometimes, and those kids they're quick and they pop out of places you wouldn't expect. So extra caution for everybody.
Yeah,
everybody
absolutely.
to be safe. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so God forbid something happens, but let's say maybe a pedestrian or a child gets injured while they're crossing the street because of a vehicle. What do we do in that situation?
Yeah, unfortunately, it does happen. Obviously, first things first, we want to make sure that everybody's okay. So if anybody, God forbid, is injured, always get medical treatment. And then anybody has any questions, if there's any type of an accident, so just call us. I always say call someone who's an expert and talk to them, and we can guide you through the process. We unfortunately deal with these types of accidents all the time, and it's a horrible thing to have to deal with, but at least we can, from our experience, help people through it.
Okay, absolutely. And then something that we always talk about that's important that, again, we don't think about is being an uninsured motorist. Mm-hmm. So just real quick, walk us through why it's important to be insured in situations like that and why it's relevant.
Yeah, and actually, Krissi, it's a good time of the year to kind of think about that, because for me personally, even though my kids are going back to college and not high school or grammar school or middle school anymore, it's still, when your kids are going back to school, your focus tends to be getting them back. And then once they're in school, we get a little bit of a breather. During that time, parents, it's a great idea to take a look at your policies and make sure that your auto policies have that uninsured motorist coverage. We've talked about this before, and I can't say it enough. That is the coverage that protects you and your family in the event that you are involved in an accident that's not your fault and the other person either doesn't have any or doesn't have enough insurance. Mm-hmm. There's no requirement in Florida for people to carry bodily injury insurance, which is what covers you in the event that they cause an accident that causes you or your family harm. And I can't say this enough. We have had situations where children were seriously injured by drivers who did not have bodily injury insurance, and the parents did not have uninsured motorist coverage. And even though that child had serious injuries, we couldn't help them. So it's a good time to, again, look at those policy documents that nobody wants to look through. Just everybody, we put it off. I put it off myself, and I have to put it on my own calendar and force myself to do it every year to review it and make sure that all my coverages are in place. And if you have any questions, call us. I will be happy to explain coverages to people, even if they're not my client. If they have questions about coverage, what is this uninsured thing that you were talking about? I have no idea. What do I have it? I will help you look at your policy and explain what I can, so that you understand the coverages. I would rather help people to get things in place than be able to not help them later on.
Yes. If you're not covered, then there's nothing that you can do to help them.
And go ahead. One thing that we realize, I'm sorry, because also is that people don't do in the news recently, and I'm sure everyone has seen it. There've been some really horrible accidents where multiple people were involved and multiple people were injured. If the person who caused the accident has insurance, let's say that person has $100,000 in bodily injury coverage, but that the accident that they caused injures 6 people, right? That coverage all of a sudden doesn't seem like very much, because if you have 6 people who are very, very seriously injured, you're talking about potentially millions of dollars worth of medical bills alone. So, again, I can't stress the importance enough. It's not sometimes just the fact that the other person isn't insured. Sometimes people, unfortunately, cause accidents that injure a lot of people. And so all those people are now competing for that coverage. So can't stress it enough. Yeah.
And I think what we think is, we're saving money because we're not getting this part. We think we're doing ourselves a favor, but that's what insurance is for. What if we actually, have an issue and we need it?
And there's a lot of misunderstandings with policy coverages, and the insurance companies don't tend to push that coverage, right? They want to tell you, come be insured with us. We'll give you the cheapest rates. We'll give you full coverage for the cheapest rates. And this is one of those instances where cheaper is not usually better, because cheaper policies are policies written by companies who are trying to just get coverage and give you the most affordable options, usually give you bare bones, very limited coverage, and people don't understand it. So the insurance company will say, we're giving you full coverage, but full coverage really doesn't mean very much. It's really full coverage most of the time. When they're referring to that, just means bare minimum and has almost no protections for you and your family. And there's so many different types of coverages. I tell people all the time, you should call an insurance agent that deals with multiple policies. It doesn't cost you anything, but call an agent that deals with a bunch of different companies, because they'll tell you which companies are offering the best plans, what fits in your family budget, and tell them, I want to protect my family. How do I protect my family? How do I get this uninsured motorist coverage that this lady Michelle from Draper Law Office keeps blabbing about every time she goes on the show? Well, ask them and ask them to explain it to you, and I do, and I'm going to keep blabbing about this for forever probably, because it's that important, because I don't ever want anyone to be in a situation. It's horrible from my end to have someone who is seriously hurt and for me to not be able to help them. It's a horrible position. I don't want to be in it, and I don't want you in it. I want everyone to be as protected as possible and take care of their families.
Yes. Agreed. And you are giving us fantastic information always, and fantastic advice. So thank you for coming on today and reaching out and sharing that with us. Do you have any final thoughts that you want to share with our viewers?
Yes, I want all the kids who are back to school to have an amazing year, and parents, good job. I hope everybody has an awesome 2022 to 2023 school year and stays very, very safe. And if anybody has any questions or concerns or anything we can help you with, call us here at Draper Law Office. We're here to help you.
Yep. Or you can go online and visit draperlawoffice.com if you want to get more information, or find their email address and get in contact with them. So again, thank you, Michelle, and I hope you have a fantastic school year.
Thank you. Bye, everyone. Bye, Krissi.